For as long as I can remember, I've had low back pain. I was an athlete growing up, so I played basketball throughout my high school life. That was the sport I played. Ended up playing a couple years of college basketball, and then found Olympic weightlifting and did that for 4 or 5 years. And I always remember feeling tight and just really immobile. I could almost never touch my toes. Forever I've had really bad posture. Even you look at my videos from 18, 20 years ago, whenever YouTube started, you can see that I'm very forward rounded when I was 14 or 15. And I didn't really understand why. I have a handful of theories, but just nothing really worked to try to improve it. I've spent countless hours over many years, probably a good part of a decade, trying the foam rolling, the stretching, the joint stuff, and a handful of mobility stuff, and I've experienced minimal lasting change. So about a year ago, I started thinking, maybe this is just how my body is. There's something I just can't deal with this, like can't fix it. And then I just started to kind of give up hope and mentally prepared for a very immobile future, thinking like, okay, well, I'm gonna have a cane, I'm gonna be in a wheelchair. I just don't think that the way that I'm moving is that sustainable. And that was just where I was at. And then about almost a year ago, 8 months ago, I discovered Cerule, and started taking their products. And within a couple months, I noticed my posture improve, my walking and my gait changed, and my mobility drastically improved. And I was like, oh, this is different. I've never experienced this before. It didn't solve the issues, but it absolutely made them better. And it was enough to give me hope that I'm not going to be in a wheelchair when I'm older. And that this kind of tightness that I'm feeling, it isn't permanent. There is a solution in some way to make it at least better. So Cerule was the spark, but I still have to keep going and keep that fire going. So yeah, I support Cerule, or I promote Cerule. I'll leave my link here, but I don't want this video and this series to be about supplementation. I want it to be what I am actively doing to improve my back pain, improve my mobility, and kind of gain that control back of my spine. So since the start of the year, I've been doing this kind of 15-20 minute morning routine for my back and you could say my hips or my pelvis. And so every day before my day starts, before my feet touch the ground, really, I am doing kind of these 5 or 6 exercises. I figured that if I can give myself 20 minutes a day in the morning to try to improve this back pain, that it will be worth it down the line. So we will get right into that now. We are in the bedroom here. I'm on my bed. I like that this is something that I can start my day with without even turning on the lights. So if I'm laying down, the first thing I do, wake up, get my alarm, turn my alarm off. I'll pull my knees up in this fairly comfortable position, and then I'll just do a little bit of belly breathing, whether it's a couple minutes, and just try to kind of open up the belly, open up the chest a little bit too, and then as I breathe out, just kind of relax through the sit bones and trying to make my spine as long as I can. Nothing too forced, just kind of casual breath. I'm not counting breaths, I'm just kind of doing it for a couple minutes, and then once I'm ready, I can move on. And then the next thing is doing kind of just extension and flexion, and just slowly trying to move forward and back. I'm not necessarily trying to feel a stretch and pull it as far as I can into end range, but just kind of move it slowly and trying to have control of every single range. So I'm not like doing it fast, or it's just, I am trying to do it with absolute control. So really trying to own every angle of the motion. Again, no rush. I'm not counting. I'm just going until I feel like I've done it for a couple minutes and I am ready to move on. So this just really wakes up the low back and gets it moving and increases the motor control, because I find that in the flexion, I feel like I'm very jerky and it's skipping. So I'm trying to eliminate that. And then next I do some hip flexor activation. So I started by just kind of lifting the hip up and then slowly moving it back down and touching the heel and then slowly lifting it back up. I have since progressed it. So now I'm going straight leg, nice and slow, probably about 5 seconds, touching my heel to the ground and then coming back up. Here I will try to get to a kind of a casual end range. So I'll go until I feel that block in my hip, and then go back out for about 5 seconds, and then touch and back up. Obviously doing both sides up. And that same thing, trying to make it be as smooth as you can without that kind of choppiness that you might feel if you don't have that same or the optimal neuromuscular connection. So that's that. I'll do 1 or 2 sets depending on my time that I have in the day. And then next I do the glute med activations, or clamshells you can call them. And again, super slow, coming up controlled, hitting end range, not forcing a stretch, but hitting that end range where you still have control, and then slowly bringing it down in one fashion. When I first started doing this, it was so jerky. It was like exaggerated, obviously, but I just didn't feel like I had that control of this muscle in order to move it at that speed. So this is what I'm trying to gain, is that the activation and that absolute control throughout the entire range of motion. And obviously I'll do the other side as well. So those are kind of the 4 things that I do before my feet even touch the ground. And then I have a couple more we'll do when I stand up. Okay, now that I am standing, I will do a couple kind of single leg exercises that are supported, because doing them unsupported is still, it pushes me past neural edge. It's to the point where I'm not activating how I want to be. So I will go one leg, I'll have the other knee up about 90, and I'm just going to hike up my pelvis and activate kind of the glute med muscle, the same kind of clamshell muscle, and then come down nice and slow, trying to elongate this muscle, and then back up. Nice, same, trying to control every angle of motion, going at about this speed, trying to be about 5 or so seconds per rep. And this one I will count. I'll usually do about 8 reps. And then obviously, same thing on the other side, nice and slow, trying to get as much mobility and range, moving the pelvis up and down. And then do some single leg RDLs. So same thing, I'm supported. Otherwise, I will not activate my glute the way I want to. Be standing on one leg, having my head kind of over top of my foot as opposed to in the center of my body. And then I will make sure that my glute is activated as best as I can. And then just try and hinge nice and slow. And then from here, making sure I'm using that glute and pulling myself up nice and slow and controlled. And then again, probably about 8 reps, down and then up, doing both sides, doing about maybe 2 sets of 8, maybe just 1 set, doing 8. And if I feel that fatigue kick in and change my motor patterns, I'll just stop. So that is the morning routine that I do. Since starting to do this morning routine, I feel like my glutes definitely engage better. My low back does not fatigue nearly as fast, and there's less kind of overall tightness, and definitely less days in which I wake up and I'm like, ooh, my back's pretty sore today. So that frequency has gone down, and I just feel overall a little bit more resilient. And so this is definitely working, and I have plans to progress it and add a few other things, but I'll save that for another video. But I have a couple other things that I want to share that I am doing. First of all, I have a leg length discrepancy, so my right leg is a little bit longer than my left, which could be why my pelvis is a bit twisted, and I have low back pain, one of the theories. So I have some heel lifts that I put in my shoe. So this is my gym one that I use, and then this is kind of my casual one. It's a little bit more comfortable for my walking shoes. I can slip it either on top of the sole or underneath, depending on how long I am going to be doing any sort of activity. And then this is the one that can go in my flats for training, or I flip it, can take it out and put it in my weightlifting shoe. So, and I'm never without them. So this is something that I am always doing whenever I'm wearing shoes. So that'll help balance out my pelvis, and I can definitely notice a difference in squatting, or even especially walking, when I have that heel lift in versus when I don't. So my pelvis just feels way more neutral, and my spine is just way more aligned. So that is definitely something that has helped me along the way as well. Of course, if you want to see, most of the training that I am doing is geared towards helping my back pain. I'm going to let that sit in that other series, my weightlifting comeback series. So if you're interested in my training philosophy and those type of things, go find that there. I'll link it beside me here somewhere. And then there's, of course, that I'm just trying to keep my inflammation to a minimum. There's a whole bunch of practices that I'm trying to do there. Again, I'll save that for another video, or this video is already too long, so I'll wrap it up here. I'm gonna keep testing and to keep doing this routine. I feel like it is very practical and easy to do, and 20 minutes a day is not that much. It seems worth it to do something to try to limit this back pain. I'll keep adjusting it and improving it as I go. Obviously, I'm going to add some stuff, including things with my neck, because my neck is also quite tight. If something stops working, I'll change it, and that's kind of the whole point, is I just want to share this journey, share what's worked for me, because I know a whole lot of people out there have back pain, and I've almost given up hope, and I've come back to be like, okay, there's hope here. I can do this. I can get better. I may not ever be to the point that I want, but at least I am not chronically debilitated, or I feel like I'm going to be chronically debilitated as I get older. So far, this seems to be working for me, and I'm excited to keep the process going. So this is the Low Back Resilience Project.